Well, today we are celebrating All Saints' Day, as we have said. And this day has become special to me, and it's become special to many of us here at Embrace over the years. And thank you all so much for sharing your names of loved ones that you've lost. And thank you all to those of you who were willing to speak those out into the room today. And even if you didn't say a name and you held it in your heart, we're still with you in that this morning. It's just an honor that we can kind of be in the same space together and hold space for grief. Often churches don't do that very well, and frankly, our culture doesn't do that very well. We don't know how to deal with death too well in this culture, and I'm just grateful that you all are creating space for that here at Embrace. You know, each year I share a very similar message on All Saints' Day, and this one's going to be a similar one as well. And I find that there's some days like this where there's ideas that they bear repeating, and they can kind of hit us in different ways depending on what season of life we're in. And so I'm going to share some thoughts with you all this morning that hopefully will be encouraging to you all. I don't know about you, but I need some encouragement. You all probably need some encouragement. I like to think of the word encourage as to give courage, to put courage into someone else. And so we can encourage one another, and these messages and the scriptures and the stories we share can help to give us courage as we are facing just really, really hard things right now in our lives. All Saints' Day. You know, All Saints' Day is a day where we remember and we give honor to the people who have come before us. And when I say saints, I'm not talking about perfect people. I'm not talking about people who have earned some special status of saintliness. Some traditions have those types of people. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about just everyday people who loved God. Everyday people who were faithful and honest and loving. Those people who pointed us towards Jesus, who've played an important role in shaping us into who we are today. You know, I've said this before, but I've never really in my life been somebody who looks back all that often. And frankly, I don't look forward very often either. I'm kind of stuck in the present. And, you know, it has its advantages, but it also can drive people crazy sometimes, including my wife at times. Growing up, you know, I never really loved, history all that much. I wasn't super into my history classes, and I find that's true often among students today. Over the years, I've talked to students at Common Good, and some of them have shared that they really despise their history classes. And I hate that, because over the years, I've actually grown to love history, and the reason is because I began to see kind of the connections, that the history is actually influencing our present. And that we can learn. Julie always says preach when I say this. History teacher right here among us. Trying to convince her students of this every single day, I'm sure. But the past influences our present. The past can help us understand what we're facing right now and can help us actually understand what our future might hold for us. Right now, as we're facing kind of, in some ways, unprecedented events in our own nation, we're seeing a lot of hard things. A lot of people are going back to the past because it's helping us to make sense of what we're facing right now and also helping us to find the resources and the perspective that we need to be able to keep our heads up and to continue to march forward right now in the present. You know, the people and events of our past, they influence our present. And so when we can see the connections, I think history becomes a lot more interesting. Over the past few years, I've gone to therapy on and off. And one thing that's become clear to me as I've talked to a therapist is that my past and my upbringing, my family, my early childhood experiences, my friendships, all of that stuff has influenced me greatly and made me who I am today. Isn't that wild that the things that happen when we are small children are still coming up and impacting us right now in these moments? Even I've had some conversations with my dad even recently, and he's been able to open up and acknowledge that a lot of the things he's dealing with now are impacting or are because of what's happened in his life, even from a young age. If we want to change, if we want to mature, if we want to grow, we have to move beyond some of those unhealthy habits and behaviors. We've got to deal with the past if we want to do that. You know, I know that I'm not a self-made man. I like to think I'm highly independent and that I don't need anybody, but that's not true. I'm connected to a long line of people who have come before me, who have shaped me into who I am today. And I know that that is true for every single one of you in the room. You know, we talk a lot at Embrace about moving forward, how we've got to keep moving forward in our faith. We've got to persevere. We've got to press forward. And all that is important. But All Saints Day has taught me over the last few years that if we want to move forward, we must first be willing to look back. We move forward by looking back. The past few years, and I'm looking at the scope of about 9 or 10 years of my life, have been crazy hard. We've struggled to hold on as a community here in Embrace. We've struggled to persevere. At times, I know for me, I felt kind of stuck and stagnant and apathetic. I remember during the pandemic, it was all I could do each day just to get up and keep doing my thing each day. Right now, the problems may feel so big and scary that you may feel like, I don't even know what to do, and so you don't do anything. I don't know if anybody feels that way. It's very hard sometimes to know how to move forward. And something that has helped me to get moving is to look back, to go back to the past and find examples of real-life people who have faced incredible hardship and who didn't give up. People who have come before me, who have held on, who have stayed committed, who have stayed faithful, even in the midst of really hard times. And these people, they inspire me. They encourage me. They give me hope. And in some strange, like almost mystical way, they give me vitality and energy and courage right now in the moment. I don't know if y'all have this experience in your own life. A few years ago, we did a series on the book of Hebrews. And I'll tell you, the book of Hebrews is a hard book. It's a little bit confusing, or a lot a bit confusing, and it's a difficult one to get through. But I really loved when we studied the book of Hebrews, because when you understand the context of what these communities were facing, it's a lot easier to understand what the letters are all about. And the Hebrews, actually like every other early Christian community, was really struggling. And they were suffering. And they were having a lot of division within their communities. And Hebrews is all about staying the course. It's about not giving up. It's about persevering. The writer of Hebrews wanted these people to keep on moving and to not give up. And one way the author of Hebrews helped them to stay the course was he encouraged them to look back. Y'all may have read this text in Hebrews, but in chapter 11, it's very interesting because the author of Hebrews goes back in time into their Hebrew Bible, what we call the Old Testament, and gives 18 different examples of people from the past. Inspiring people in our Old Testament who remained faithful through hardship and uncertainty, through rejection. And essentially the author's saying to them, hey, listen, I know you're struggling. I know about the division and the loneliness. I know it's so hard. You're struggling to keep moving. I know you're facing so many challenges. But here's the deal. Many people have faced similar challenges who have come before you. And they remain faithful. They were able to persevere. And you're not alone. And you can actually do it too. In Hebrews 12, we read these words. It says, after sharing about all these 18 different people, here's what the author says. Therefore, referring back to chapter 11, you've heard all these examples. Therefore, since we are surrounded by such a great cloud of witnesses, let us throw off everything that hinders and the sin that so easily entangles, and let us run. Let us run with perseverance the race marked out for us, fixing our eyes on Jesus, the pioneer and perfecter of faith. For the joy set before him, he endured the cross, scorning its shame, and sat down at the right hand of the throne of God. Consider him, consider Jesus, who endured such opposition from sinners, so that you will not grow weary and lose heart. Man, I love this passage. This is a passage for people who are struggling to keep going. We're surrounded by the great cloud of witnesses, but we also have Jesus to keep our eyes on. The image he uses here is the image of a race, running a race. Some of you all have run races before. I think that the New York City Marathon's happening this morning, actually. It may already be done. I'm not sure. Some people are still running, I'm sure. I'm sure the fast guy still, he's done already. But what we're meant to envision here is a marathon. Has anybody here ever run a marathon? Wow, we've got a few people. I've never run a marathon. I want to one day. But what we're meant to envision here is a marathon in the ancient Olympic Games. And the way they used to do these races, from what I understand, is they would begin somewhere outside the city, in some remote location. And I'm sure at the start line there were some fans, and along the way there would be a few fans watching at the beginning. But as the race progressed, the runners, they would get closer and closer to the city. And as they got closer to the city, the crowds would start to grow. And as the crowds and cheering fans would grow, the runners' exhaustion would also increase at the same time. And they would eventually arrive at the Colosseum. And in the Colosseum, you can imagine at the end of the marathon, their bodies and their minds are just being pushed to the utter limits of their capabilities. And in the Colosseum, they're expected then to make their final push to the finish line. And when they get inside the Colosseum, they would run one final lap inside the Colosseum, and the whole Colosseum is going to be full of spectators just cheering them on as they make their final push. You can imagine just the roar of the crowd. And my brother ran the New York City Marathon a couple of years ago, and he ran it, and the one thing he said was so amazing about it is there were fans lining the road the entire race. And they have signs, and they're cheering, and they're just so excited to see you run. And he said that just gave him the energy he needed to complete this race that was so, so hard. And so at the end of this marathon, in this Colosseum, you have all these people surrounding the runners, cheering for them, giving them the energy they needed to run and to finish at the end of their race. The writer of Hebrews wants his people to see themselves as the racers running. And they are surrounded in the Colosseum by a place that's full of cheering fans. And the writer of Hebrews is saying those fans are all the people who have come before you. And they've also run the race, actually, and they have finished, and they are there cheering you on, helping you to persevere and stay faithful. These are the people in our lives, cheering them on, supporting them, empowering them to keep up the good fight, to persevere, and to finish the race. You know, we often talk about the Christian church as this worldwide body of believers who are mystically connected to each other through the body of Christ. And this is true. I've traveled to other parts of the world. I remember when I visited, I lived in Cambodia for 6 months back in 2005. 2006 I was there. And it was such a beautiful experience. And I remember traveling out into the remote countryside of Cambodia with some other Christians. And I would meet Christians in the middle of nowhere. I don't speak their language, but they welcomed us into their homes as if we were part of their family. I mean, that's the body of Christ right there. That I am part of their family, even though I live on the complete opposite end of the world. It is beautiful to be welcomed in by Christians all across the world. The church is not limited by space, right? Or distance. But here's the thing. One thing we often forget is the church is also not limited by time either. It's not limited by time. We are connected to a long line of faithful followers of God who have come before us. And we have a hard time in our culture because, like I said, we don't look back very often. And we often think of that kind of as too like woo-woo or something. But the reality is, like, the Bible teaches us that we are connected to all of those ancestors of our spiritual faith that come before us. Even Jesus, you think about like the transfiguration. You remember when he went up on the mountain? Like the heroes of the faith were on the mountain there, meeting with him, invigorating him, giving him the energy he needed to continue to follow God. We are connected to the faithfulness of the people who have come before us. And here's the deal. The faithfulness of those who come after us will be connected to ours as well. We're all connected, and it all matters. When we have such a limited scope, the problems in front of us can seem impossible. But when we realize we're connected to something big, we're connecting to something big. We're connected to a story that stretches thousands of miles across the world and is thousands of years old. Hebrews portrays the life of faith as a relay race. Those who have come before us have run the race, and now they pass the baton to us, and it's our turn to run. So we're running, we're worn out, we're exhausted, we're doing our best, and then one day we're going to pass that baton to others, and they're going to continue the race as well. And All Saints' Day is a day to remember the relay race. That we are not alone. We do not run this race by ourselves. There's many who have run before us. We pick up where they left off, and we are running the race, and we'll pass it on eventually. Those who have already run, those spiritual ancestors, they are surrounding us, cheering for us, praying for us, encouraging us, and giving us strength to keep moving forward. And one day, we're going to join the great cloud of witnesses, and we're going to be able to cheer those on who come after us. You know, a few years ago, we made these banners. You see one here and one over here, and they've been out in the hallway, but we wanted to bring them in here so you could see them and reintroduce you to them. I forgot they were in the hallway because you kind of see them every single day. And these banners, we made them because we had folks, they made these little squares, and then we put them all together, and each of these squares represents somebody in that person's great cloud of witnesses. These banners are a visible reminder to us that we are actually not alone. In my office, I'm surrounded by a great cloud of witnesses. Behind my desk, I have images of Mary and Joseph and Jesus, the Holy Family. I have Oscar Romero. I have Dorothy Day. Right in front of my desk, I have this massive picture of Mother Teresa, always reminding me of what the true path of Jesus looks like. I have quotes and things from Dr. King and Reverend Barber, books about Philip and Daniel Berrigan, Henry Nouwen, Desmond Tutu, Ched Myers. I have pictures of my wife and students I've worked with over the years, my family and my friends, pictures of you all. They are with me. They are my great cloud of witnesses, encouraging me and challenging me to keep moving forward. I read this description of All Saints' Day a few years back, and I love it. It says, however hard it might seem to follow the way of Jesus in our time and place, this is a day to remember that we may be crazy, but we are not alone. And we are crazy. The way of Jesus might seem crazy because it kind of is. It kind of is. It seems crazy to follow the way of Jesus when our country is just randomly bombing boats in the middle of the ocean. It may seem crazy to follow Jesus' path of welcome and inclusion and hospitality when our culture is so dead set about separating people and saying some are worthy and some are not. The way of Jesus might be crazy, but we are not alone on this journey. There's been many other crazy followers of Jesus who have come before us, and there will be many others who come after us. We cannot follow Jesus and move forward if we do not look back to those who have come before. I've mentioned this concept for you before, but in case you haven't heard it, I want to say it again. There's this concept that originated in Ghana, a West African country, and it's become important to me. It's this idea called Sankofa, and the word literally means to go back and get it. It comes from a proverb that says it's not taboo to fetch what is at risk of being left behind. Sankofa teaches us that we must reach back in order to move forward. We must build upon the best of our past as we march forward into the future. Sankofa is a constant reminder that the past is not all shameful and that the future may profitably be built upon aspects of the past. The Christian faith has a tarnished past, right? We have a lot of ugly things from our past. But the stories that don't often get told are the ones of the faithful people, the remnant of Jesus' followers who have stayed faithful throughout history. And those stories can inform the way we live into our future. We must have a sense of our history and appreciation for those who have paved the way to help us become who we are today. We are formed by our community. There are two symbols that represent Sankofa. I've showed this image before, but one is the image of a bird, and you can see its feet are planted firmly forward, but its head is looking back. This bird represents the wisdom of learning from our past as we move into the future. We move forward by looking back. Scripture teaches us that one person in particular has run the race of life better than any other, and that person is Jesus of Nazareth. He faced all the hardships and suffering and pain that the world could dish out, yet Jesus remained faithful. He remained focused, and he held on until the end. And I see Jesus in that Colosseum. He's right there in the middle, maybe in the student section, he's the one that's the craziest, cheering the loudest. He's right in the middle of it, cheering louder than everyone, saying, "You can do it. You are not alone." As we run this race of life, remember, many have run before you, many will run after you. And as you run your leg of the race, keep your eyes on Jesus and all the others that have come before. I want us to take a moment it's before we take communion, actually. We're going to have a song that we're going to sing or just reflect on while we do this. But I want to offer just a moment of reflection for you all to think about who is in your great cloud of witnesses. So here's some questions I'll put on the screen that we'll leave up here for a little bit. Who is in your great cloud of witnesses? Who is cheering for you as you run this race of life? Whose love has nurtured you in your journey of faith? Who keeps you going? As you reflect on who, and it may be people you know, a lot of people in my great cloud of witnesses are not people I've ever met, but I feel like I know them because I've read books by them. I know lots of quotes. I know about their story. But who are the people in your life that keep you going when life gets hard? Who are the people you look to and remember? Who are the people giving you energy and courage as you seek to follow the way of Christ? I want to imagine that you are finishing the race in the Colosseum. The stadium is full of people, and they're cheering you on. Who fills the stadium of your mind? Cheering you on, inspiring you, helping you to push forward. So once you've thought of some folks, I encourage you to come forward and light a candle in honor of those people. So we have some tea lights up here in the front. They're real tea lights. They're not electric ones. So if you come with children, come with them. Make sure you're being safe. And we'll have some lighters up here on each side. And they're on both sides of the altar rails. And so I want you to come forward and light a candle in honor of somebody that's coming to your mind. And as we finish the service, we're going to see these lights shining bright, giving us strength as we continue our journey for the rest of this year. And so let me get the lighters ready, and then as soon as I get them down here, y'all are welcome to come forward as you feel ready.
Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. I once was lost, but now I am found, was blind